Did it work? Oh, there we go. Hi, Dr. Harris. How are you?
I'm doing okay. What about yourself?
I'm doing well. I wanted to bring something to your attention, and I know this is probably something that you've heard from a lot of other people, but I was a little bit worried about how you would be doing based on what was going on in the world regarding the death of George Floyd, because you do identify as a Black male.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah, it's a hard one. It's been difficult to talk about. And there's been a part of me that's been trying to separate that and really focus on my work. And um, really focus on my work. But haven't been doing too well with that.
Haven't been doing too well with that.
I haven't been doing well with it at all. Particularly as it's hard to escape it. It's everywhere you turn. It's on the news. It's everywhere, and I know for me, as I look at him, I think about like things that have been preceding. I had a couple of events in my own neighborhood before, and I give you like a good example. I've been having this issue with my homeowners association, and we have this rule where you can't hang signs, you can't put signs in your yard, you can't have political signs in your yard. So what happened was a number of my neighbors had put political signs in their windows. And so they weren't in their yards, but they were in their windows. And so I would go and report it to the homeowners association. And so then another neighbor would do it, and I would see it. So every time I would see it, of course, I'm the person that was called, the lady's name is Judy. And I know she would hate for my number to come up on. It's like, Judy, here's another sign, here's another sign. I'm like, why do I always have to be the person that's called? Why does it always have to be me? Because I know other people see it. I know people ride by and they see it. It's a huge neighborhood.
So what I'm hearing you say is you're the only one that's standing up and saying something about it.
Yeah. And sometimes just it gets frustrating to be the person that's standing up and saying something, like being that weight of being the only one, the one that has to sometimes being perceived as a troublemaker, the one that's, and then that person. It's like, sometimes I feel like I'm walking in the neighborhood,
I mean, that's a terrible feeling, to feel kind of like you're the one isolated from everyone else.
There's a further step to that one, and then I'll definitely get back to that one. So what ended up happening in that situation, it didn't end, because it never ends. My neighbor behind me, he put a flagpole on the back of his car, and he put a large flag on his car. So it wasn't a political sign, and it wasn't in his yard, and it wasn't a political sign in his window, but it was a political sign in the back, large political sign on the back of his four-wheel drive. And so then he's riding down the road and here's this large flag flying on the back of his car, on the back of his large truck. And so then I'm the person that has to get back on the phone, call Judy again. Judy, this is Rodney, da 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 da. And then she says, and then so I said to her, Judy, the South has a history with flags. And if you let this flag fly, my fear is other flags are gonna fly. And I need the homeowners association to respond to this because of the nature of the violating the spirit of the covenant. And so, you know, as I think about the context of that stuff going on, then this happens, you know. And I see that, and, you know, I think this stuff never ends, you know. And, you know, these battles, these fights, and then I see him, you know, and then I have to explain to my, you know, my nephews who are calling me and asking me about him, and you know, and my little great nephews who are seeking wisdom and guidance about this, and having to explain that to them, you know, and even having my own flashbacks of driving while Black. You know, some of my earlier fears of, you know, living in a predominantly white neighborhood and driving at night alone and staying on
scary.
Staying on the phone with my fraternity brothers, or calling my wife, or calling someone, you know, and even my mom training me at an early age, you know, not to live above your means, often is what she would say.
How do you explain to someone what it's like to be a Black male in America, or in the world even?
Oh my goodness. So, oftentimes it's it's a feeling of isolation and being alone, and oftentimes people wonder why I'm quiet, suspicious, and mistrusting. You know? Often you just don't know who to trust, and you know, and often it is, you know, it is scary, and it is and it is something, it is fear-based, because, you know, my grandmother, I think of her a lot because she instilled this piece of fear in me from an early age. You know, she instilled it in me. So there's a level of fear that I keep in order to cope, in order to live, in order to survive.
Does this fear that she instilled in you, do you think that helps you, or do you think it hinders you?
What I think, you know what, Justina, I think that it has helped me in some ways. I think that it has helped me. It is what has, some ways, it is a piece of what has kept me alive. It has helped me make a lot of good decisions. I know about, you know, where to be and what to do and what to avoid and who to avoid and the appropriate time to be in, and you know, how to check myself, you know, how to look behind my back, and even these issues of respect and mannerisms, you know, I think about that. Part of that I know is fear-based, but it is ways you learn to survive, ways I've learned to survive.
It almost sounds like from what I'm hearing you say is that you've lived in fear your entire life.
Mm. That is my truth. You know, yeah. You know, that's my truth. Yeah, I live. So yeah. Fear's what keeps me alive. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
How do
Mm-hmm.
you explain this fear to younger generations?
Yeah. I think part of what I would say to them is that there has to be some level. Part of what I would say is that they would have to have a piece of it to be able to cope. I think that's what I would offer. You know what? Now that I think of it, I think of something called it's like hidden rules, like
Mm-hmm.
playing game. Like you know, it might be hidden rules, playing game, saving face, like survive. Because it's called survival.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's survival.
Yeah, I'm hearing you say the word survival a lot. And, you know, it kind of sounds like it's not so much that you're living, it's that you're merely surviving.
Mm. You know, I think as a you know, I think as a man, I think as a Black man, I think, you know, being here, I think for my mom, I think for my wife, for my daughter, I think to be alive and to survive, that might be a monumental task in times like these.
Do you think that your view would be different if, you know, you didn't, if you weren't married or if you didn't have a child?
Mm. Hmm. You know, outside of those roles, you know, I'm so enmeshed in those roles.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because I never thought of like, like I used to say I would never get married and I would never have a child
Mm-hmm.
20 years ago. And now I can not see myself not married and not having those roles are the most important roles to me. So it's hard for me to think of myself outside of those roles. So, um, but I can imagine if I didn't have those roles and those responsibilities, that my perception probably be entirely different. So probably, possibly. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Yeah, give me something to hold to think on.
I gave you something to think about.
Yeah, yeah. As a man, as a Black man, as a
Mm-hmm.
yeah, something to think about. And it's, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll have to take that one. It might be a good piece of homework to sit and see if I can hold that and write about that or think about that and what my life might be like outside of those roles. Yeah. Yeah.
So kind of going off of what you said about roles, what do you think your role is, being that you do identify as a Black male and also you're a counselor educator and a licensed professional counselor?
You know, so my role as an advocate is a role that I take very seriously. So so at the beginning, when I was talking about why do I have to be the one that goes to the homeowners association? Why do I have to be the one that Judy? Because I know intertwined in my confronting and challenging is my role as an advocate. You know, when I think of our ethical codes and the responsibility of challenging and confronting systems of oppression and systems that keep people and communities and that prevent dialogue. And I know I know the intent of those oppressive systems and how they keep people silent. And I know that if I or we allow them, what would happen, and my responsibility to interrupt them, and that I cannot allow it to go on. And so whenever I see it, I have to confront it. And so that if I don't do it on this level, then on my next level, I can't go into my class and I can't go into my practicum group. I can't go into my internship group. I can't go into my course room. And when I see my students, I can't ask them to have a dialogue about race, or I can't tell them, look, while we're here, let's talk about what's going on while you're at your internship. Let's talk about the impact of COVID-19 as it disproportionately impacts community of color. Let's talk about that. And let's discuss that. While you're out here, you know, let's talk about that and how you feel about your clients when some of them don't wear, ask them, are you wearing your mask? And are your clients wearing your mask? And then let's discuss why you don't wear yours, your level of comfort. And then let's challenge those systems and why you do it and why you don't. Let's have a talk about that and what's behind it. And then also, I want you to hear my perspective and through my lens, how I feel about what's going on the outside here as I'm watching other men of color, other African-American men that are being shot, that are being murdered, that are being killed. And I want you to know how I'm directly impacted by it. And then I want to know what responsibility and what are you doing about it? Because you actually have a responsibility to do something about it. And I want to know, what are you doing? And I want to challenge you about what are you doing? And so that when I confront those systems, when I confront them, I want to know that is, you know, that's what ethical codes mandate. And I want to give you that. I want to offer that to you. And I want to give that back to you. And so that's my role as a counselor educator that is my responsibility, because often I know they may not get that opportunity again. And if I don't confront it while I'm here, as often as uncomfortable as it is for me, it may not happen again. So while they're here and while I have this chance and opportunity, I'm going to do it.
I'm hearing you say that, you know, you act not only as a university supervisor, but also as a role model to counselor in training, because you're setting an example for them to understand that in terms of the code of ethics that we're bound to uphold, like we don't just drop it when we're done counseling people. It kind of goes with us wherever we go.
Particularly when it comes to advocacy, when it comes to social justice, that it follows us, in our communities, wherever we go, we take it with us, just like our license, and that we don't, we live it, we breathe it, and that we confront oppressive systems, we confront it when we see it, and that we are equipped and we're ready. That's part of our education. That's what you come to Chicago School. We've trained you to do it. And, my expectation is that you leave here equipped and ready to do that. And you have the tools to engage in this dialogue, because part of what the responsibility is that I want you to practice and do it here, because if you can practice and exhibit and do it here, then my hope is if you do it and practice it here, when you leave here, you'll do it there.
It's good to get practice.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Great to get practice.
Well, it was great talking to you, Dr. Harris. Yeah. Thank you for, being so transparent about this topic, because I know for some people it's not easy to talk about.
Yeah, I really appreciate your time. Thank you for this discussion, and I look forward to chatting with you again on Cultural Advocacy. Bye-bye.
Bye.